Hey everyone, I'm James Reeves. You're listening to the Automotive Icons podcast. Today, a subject very near and dear to my heart. Two vehicles specifically that I am in love with. These vehicles have been almost anything and everything at different points in history. They've been farm tools, they've been expedition vehicles, status symbols, suburban family cars for soccer moms, and in some cases, literal weapons of war. They both started as utilitarian Jeep knockoffs. They both built cult followings. Today, they represent two very different ideas of what capability means. Can you guess what they are? Well, probably, because you probably saw the title of this podcast, today's episode. We're talking about the Toyota Land Cruiser versus the Mercedes G-Wagon. I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, two of the best vehicles possibly ever invented. Scratch that. Two of the best inventions in human history. We're talking about it today on Automotive Icons. eBay has reinvented vehicle buying from click to curb. Everything's covered with their new secure purchase. eBay isn't just where you find your car, it's where you buy it, start to finish. Title, financing, registration, delivery, it's all built in. And eligible vehicle purchases are backed by up to $100,000 in protection. This is what modern car buying looks like. Get your next ride on eBay. eBay, things people love. Secure Purchase is powered by Caramel Dealer Services, LLC, an eBay subsidiary. Some of you are saying, man, I have wondered this myself. What's better, the Land Cruiser or the G-Wagon? Others of you might be saying, why are you even comparing these things? It's apples to oranges. It's all about perspective. These cars, it's like James Franco in the interview. Same, but different, but same, right? They've got a lot of similarities. They both have roots in Jeep-like military use, right? That's probably, I would say, why both of these were brought about. And to this day are still used in that capacity. They're both boxy. They're both reliable. They're both admirable. And there are a lot of similarities, but at the same time, especially in 2025, 2026, they couldn't be any more different other than being SUVs. So again, it just depends on perspective. What do you mean, James? Is the 2025 Land Cruiser better than the 2025 G-Wagon? Or are we talking about it holistically? We're going to explore. I don't even know. I don't know the answer to that question. Be easy on me, okay? This is only episode 6. So we're going to get to the tough. We're going to work through this together. We're on a journey, G-Wagon versus Land Cruiser journey. But they both started out the same. They evolved in different, even opposite ways. Land Cruiser. I've been a Land Cruiser nerd ever since. Always loved them. Ever since I was young. I have owned 3 generations of Land Cruiser and 4 total Land Cruisers, including 2. I have 2 presently. I've owned a 60 series, which those of you out there may not know what that is. That's the one that you're seeing. It's hot right now, the 60 series. That's the one that has sometimes the circular headlights and sometimes the 2 sets of rectangle headlights, depending on what year it is, with kind of the classic style body. That's the 60 series. I had one of those for a while. I've had a 90 series. Many of you out there, if you're in the U.S., you don't know what a 90 series is because they never made it to the United States, but you can get them imported. I think that they were popular in South America, popular in Japan. There's a whole ton of them in Japan. Right now, that is your bargain buy, by the way, if you're looking to get into an actual capable Land Cruiser at not a lot of money, you're looking at the 90 series right now. And I own 2 70 series. I own a 70 series Prado, which people refer to as the light-duty Land Cruiser. And a lot of Land Cruiser guys sneer at the Prado. Same thing, the 90 series is a Prado. And Land Cruiser, hardcore Land Cruiser guys, they sneer at them the same way Porsche guys sneer at the 944 and, the 968, 928, 924, where it's not a real Land Cruiser. It's the light-duty Land Cruiser. Well, I think that that's a bit of snobism. I denounce my brethren, my Land Cruiser brethren, for that type of attitude. And frankly, I think I like driving my Prado on the daily better than I like driving my heavy duty Land Cruiser. I've got a J78, that's the Prado. It's a 1KZTE diesel turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. And then I've got the J76 with the legendary 1HZ diesel engine, one of the most reliable engines ever built. And that's not hyperbole. I think that's actual fact. So, I know quite a bit about Land Cruisers. Look, I'm not a Land Cruiser encyclopedia. I don't think anyone is. There are so many nuances, even for one particular year of Land Cruiser, so many ways that this car could get served up. It is one of the most modular vehicles of all time, and it especially in the 80s and 90s, you just saw the catalog changing with new models and SKUs added and subtracted every single year. And that's part of the legacy of this car, I think, is the fact that there are so many variants. It's so useful. You can get a pickup truck variant. You can get a short wheelbase, what they call a 3-door variant. You can get the long wheelbase. You can get them wide. You can get them narrow. And they are fit for a lot of roles. So I'm a big Land Cruiser guy. What about G-Wagons? I own and have owned one G-Wagon. I've got a 1999 G320. It's got the M112 6-cylinder engine with a 5-speed automatic transmission, and I love this truck more than I could ever love a human baby. It is one of my favorite vehicles, and it's given my Land Cruisers a run for the money. Now, I also have some experience in Austria where these cars are still made. A lot of people are surprised to find out that the G-Wagon actually originated in and is still made in Austria. Steyr-Puch was the company that invented the G-Wagon. I've been to Steyr's factory in Steyr, Austria, but it's since moved. The factory making, for obvious reasons, the factory making the G-Wagon is no longer a part of the original factory where it was decades and decades ago. And when I was in Austria, I had the pleasure of spending time with Mr. Bernard Paltram, the owner of Paltram Auto House, a Mercedes dealership. Bernie is the man. He knows more about G-Wagons than possibly anyone else in the world. Second generation Mercedes dealership owner. He owns probably a dozen or more G-Wagons himself. It's his favorite car. He restores every generation of them. I mean, it's one of those things. I want to put some love out there for Bernie because his dealership is in Austria. And if you could ever be so lucky to have Bernard Paltram restore your G-Wagon, it is going to be done impeccably. I've seen every generation of G-Wagon being restored in his shop. And I mean like 460, 461, 463. I've seen all three generations in various states of restoration in his shop. And the guy really knows his stuff. I also got to off-road a 460, a W460 Wolf with the guys at Hellsclaw. I hope they're listening to this, but there's an off-roading club outside of Austria, which is an incredible experience. It's called Hellsclaw. If you're in Europe, go out of your way. It's beautiful. It's this alpine off-roading course along the side of a mountain, and you got a bunch of guys that are really passionate about their trucks. You've got, like, the different gangs show up, right? You've got, like, the Land Rover guys show up, the Land Cruiser guys show up, the Jeep guys show up, and they all show up, and they kind of situate themselves in these little cliques, and then everyone goes out driving, and after that, they have, like, a barbecue, and they have drinks. It's an incredible experience, but it's called Hellsclaw, and I got to off-road a W460 series. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but the point is, I'm a big nerd about both of these, and that's why I'm super, super excited to talk to you about one versus the other. That same, but different, but same part. We're going to talk about that real quick. The Land Cruiser, one of the oldest nameplates in the world, continuously running nameplates. I think it's been around since the 50s. When they made the first Land Cruiser, rumor, like, I think there's no consensus on this, which is weird because you would think this would be recorded, but you've heard me refer to the models of Land Cruiser as J blank blank, like you have a J, and then you've got the first number, which designates the generation, and then you've got the second number, which designates the submodel. Well, the rumor is that J stood for Jeep because they would call them Jeeps. It was its official name when the Land Cruiser first came out. They were calling it a Jeep. But when they realized that they were going to want to export these, then they said, hey, look, guys, we can't call them Jeeps anymore. We got to call them something else. I know. Let's call them Land Cruiser. Or if you're in Japan, since, they don't have the hard L, Renkuru. So what you'll hear them referred to as in Japan. But it's one of the oldest nameplates in the world because they've been continuously making them for, I want to say, well over half a century. G-Wagon, basically same origin story. It was invented in Austria by Steyr-Puch as a military vehicle to fulfill military contracts. And both of them excelled with this early emphasis that they had on durability, simplicity, capability on different terrain. But then they start, and again, I'm not sure about my dates on the G-Wagon, but I think you're looking in the mid-50s for the Land Cruiser and like the mid-70s for the G-Wagon. So the Land Cruiser had a couple decades on the G-Wagon before it comes about. But they start to diverge, I want to say, pretty rapidly after their introduction. The first Land Cruiser we get in the United States, and the first big Land Cruiser, right, is the 40 series. You guys have seen those. They look like Jeeps. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. When you say Land Cruiser, a bunch of you, you equate the Land Cruiser with that early style, the earliest one, the 40 series. Really cool trucks. They're reliable. They operate well in all sorts of terrain, and they look cool, right? But that's the 40 series. Then you have the 50 series, the Iron Pig. No one really talks about the 50 series. It was kind of Toyota saying, all right, we're going to take a stab at suburban owners now, like city dwellers, people that don't need like a Jeep, people that want some creature comforts. That one, for whatever reason, did not go over so well. It's a cool looking truck, and you can see them from time to time. Maybe check eBay Motors, and one might show up. But they're not very common, and, it's kind of harder to get parts for them, even though they're neat-looking trucks. Then you get the 60 series. We talked about that already. Those are hot right now. That was a success, and it was successful in the United States, and it was successful across the world, and they're extremely popular as we sit here today. It's not a stretch. If you find one in good condition, you're going to pay six figures for it, possibly. Serviceable as a daily driver. I got rid of mine because it was my only car at the time, and I had it for a couple of years as a daily, and it was not super convenient. So I ended up getting rid of it. Well, then after that, you have the 70 series, and here's where things start to branch off. This is very important. The 70 series is the boxy one that you guys see, African safari cars. You see them like Toyotas of war, right? Like as technicals next to Hiluxes. The 70 series was introduced in 1984, and it is still manufactured to this day because it's almost like, if you know anything about evolution or biology, the crocodile, where they found out, they're like, oh man, yeah, the crocodile. And, by the way, I don't know, like evolutionary terms to me are so ridiculous. Like I can't even contemplate. They're like, oh yeah, 2 billion years ago, the crocodile shows up, and actually he hasn't changed since. They did a pretty good job evolving into the crocodile, and it's pretty much just like its ancestor. That's the 70 series. The 70 series is the crocodile of cars. It was so well done originally that it has been marginally changed. Americans, my primary audience, I would assume, have very little idea of what a 70 series is. Most of you have never even seen one in real life. If you've gone out of the country, if you've gone to Africa, if you've gone on safari, if you've gone to Japan, you've certainly seen one. But in the U.S., they're pretty much unheard of. And they had to have been imported here at some point, but I have never seen one before I bought one after importing it from Japan myself. So they're very rare, and they're still made to this day. They even have like this special Skunk Works factory in Gibraltar, Toyota does, that essentially manufactures 70 series for like war zones. And I just saw the 2025 version of the 70 series at SEMA, I saw a 2024 version that was like all decked out at Fuji Speedway when I was in Japan a couple of years ago. So there's still, now you're looking at a car that started out as being super utilitarian, still is super utilitarian, but they have introduced like a little bit higher trim levels in these cars because they're popular overlanders. I think they're popular in Australia especially. But that's a divergence. So the 70 series is its own thing almost. It shoots out from the other Land Cruisers that I'll call the consumer grade Land Cruisers. Well, you go from the 70 series to the 80 series. The 80 series, you guys know, it's kind of the rounder one. It's popular right now. I think like the Kardashians or the Jenners or whoever, like, you know, they just got one. These are now hitting $100,000 for really low mileage examples, like I've seen on eBay Motors. A lot of these go for a whole ton of money if they're well maintained because they're capable. You still have triple locking differentials. You still have powerful, reliable engines. But at the same time, these are some of the most comfortable Land Cruisers. And certainly to date, this is kind of where you saw Land Cruiser skewing more towards luxury, is with the introduction of the 80 series. And then that continues. You have the 90 series, which is the Prado. We didn't get it in the U.S. You've got the 100 series, becomes a little bit more luxurious, although those are certainly capable too. I get a lot of listeners, a lot of viewers out there who will send me pictures of up-armored 100 series technicals. They look like they're about to pick up the kids from soccer or whatever, and they're serving in a war zone in like the wartime Middle East, and everyone talked about how great they were. You didn't even have to modify them. You could armor them up and load them up full of dudes and guns and ammo and drive through a war zone with them. That's the legacy of the Land Cruiser. Well, then you start working your way up towards the 200 series. 200 series, I want to say, don't quote me on this, was like 2007 to 2021. And that's when these were luxury cars. These were straight up low ground clearance. I mean, still capable vehicles, still reliable vehicles, but you're talking like $100,000 for one. And these were legit soccer mom cars. I remember one of the named partners at this big law firm I worked at, he had one that was white and it was all decked out and it was cool, but it's not a Land Cruiser. They were kind of breaking away from their heritage, but fortunately you had the 70 series still soldiering on. Well, then what happens? Well, the people who were Land Cruiser buyers are no longer Land Cruiser buyers. And in the mid-2020s, early 2020s, they abandoned the Land Cruiser in the United States. They stopped selling it. Well, then recently you saw the 250 series. You guys have seen that. It's the new Land Cruiser, and then there's the Lexus version of it, which everyone raves about. And it came back in a big way, back to its more off-roading, utilitarian roots. So that's the whole Land Cruiser story. Now, the G-Wagon story is a lot shorter and a lot simpler. You're basically looking at three generations, the 460, 461, and 463. I think the 462 was like an export-only version for like Portugal or Morocco or Greece or something like that. So that's why there's no 462. But the 460 was a bare-bones military vehicle. Then it transitioned, that 460, which, you know, a lot of people will call the 460 or the 461, like the Wolf version, right? Well, that's the Jeepiest of them. No creature comforts. These were utilitarian vehicles strictly. Well, in the 461, you start to get selective comfort. You get a little bit better upholstery. That's kind of where you're getting, I think, air conditioning in the 461. And then you're starting to see some civilian adoption, some of the officer class using it. Like, you know, you've got the that lieutenant that nobody likes in the unit, and he doesn't want to drive around in a nasty OD green spray painted Jeep looking 460. You're going to give him the 461 with the silver paint that's got. They have this dove gray tartan. I don't know if the 461s had this. I know some of the 463s did, but you had this dove gray tartan checker interior that's beautiful. And I have been tempted, if my interior wasn't in such good shape in mine, to swap it out to get the dove gray tartan. interior. But the point is, with the 461, they started classing it up a little bit. And then finally, you get, I want to say, in the late 80s or maybe mid-early 90s, that's when you get the W463, which is a pivot towards luxury. You have some early 463s that have cloth interior, but this is kind of where you're getting wood grain. This is where you're getting leather. By the time 1999 rolls around, which is what I've got, a 99, I have couch-like leather seats, wood grain everywhere. It is, at this point, a luxury car. However, mine still has triple locking differentials. Mine still has a very reliable, serviceable engine. Well, things change in 2018 without going into too much detail because I feel like I've spent a lot of time on this already. That's when these become the ultra luxury vehicles, like beyond Mercedes standard, like even S-Class vehicles. You're talking about the super high end, over 100,000, easy to shift into a $250,000 car, AMG models, I think Brabus making models. You've got the 6-wheel models that are ridiculously expensive and like the 4x4 squared models. That's a disconnect from the utilitarian roots. And you can see, like I said, there's a lot easier trajectory to explain to people, even though I think that they are still making 461s for military use or whatever. I mean, now the G-Wagon is, again, you look at that arc, and it pretty much just goes in one direction, and that is from utilitarian to luxury, and now it's ultra luxury. It's beyond your average Mercedes. It's now a super luxury car. And you bet your butt that no one is off-roading like their AMG G-Wagon on the weekend. I think in the grand scheme of things, it's very difficult to say, hey, the Land Cruiser is better or the G-Wagon is better, just because, again, you've got the G-Wagon, which is pretty much completely different. It's almost a completely different car as we sit here today in 2025 versus what it started out as, where the Land Cruiser has kind of stayed in a general lane. As we said, there's been a little bit of variability, but you've always had the 70 series. So it's kind of hard. It's almost an apples to oranges comparison to say which one's better. Well, I'm going to try my best to give you an apples to apples comparison. We're going to take a snapshot because I think this is the fairest way to do it. I've got a 2000 J76 heavy duty 4-door, well, technically they call it a 5-door Land Cruiser, which is funny because it actually has 6 doors. Because it's got 2 ambulance doors in the back, but they call it a 5-door, whatever. And I've got a 4-door G-Wagon, 1999 G320. This is what I'll say. The Land Cruiser HZ Series diesel engine is one of the most reliable engines ever built. I mentioned that already. They call it a million-mile engine. I've seen many of them with almost 1 million kilometers on them. We're talking like 600,000 miles plus on them. And these are vehicles that are easy to maintain. You can take it down the street and you can get someone to work on it for you. They're very simple, right? That's the attraction, where you can get one of these in Africa. You could put stale diesel fuel in it. You can find parts for it. It's not a car that's finicky. Now, with the G-Wagon, talking to Bernard Paltram, he says that the 5-cylinder diesel engine from the early G-Wagons is unbustable. Unbustable. Now, one thing that's interesting to me is that Bernard did mention that rust is a problem with all G-Wagons, especially if they come from places where roads are salted. So I made a video about that over on my YouTube channel, Jim Ports, if you want to go look at it. But, we kind of show where you need to inspect these cars because rust is an issue, because there are some weak points in the frame where corrosion can start and can cling on and build up without you finding it easily. Like, for example, around the tail lights and you can't see it until you actually remove the taillights, stuff like that. But my 99 G320, it's got the M1112 engine. I believe that was also used in other cars that year, like the S-Class. Still pretty easy to work on, drives very smoothly. And by the way, it's Bernard that suggested I look at a late 90s, early 2000s G-Wagon. He kind of sees the intersection of off-road capability, convenience, comfort, class as late 90s to early 2000s. That's when you had the M1112 V6 engines and the M113 V8, the early G500s. And Bernard said that these are some of the most reliable, but you can also get them with the 5-speed automatic transmissions. They feel like luxury cars. So they're off-road capable. They're comfortable to drive. They hold value. They look good. That's kind of like the apex. When I'm driving my Land Cruiser, my 70 series, I feel like I'm driving a tractor. It's slow. It's sluggish. But at the same time, there's something about that, right? There's something about that power, that diesel, the engine rumbling, but you're not going to mistake it for a luxury car. When you're driving a G-Wagon, you are driving a Mercedes, and you know it. At least a 463 series like I have. I mean, I love both these trucks. Okay, what about off-roading? They're both incredibly capable. I've off-roaded both of them. My 70 series and my G-Wagon, they've got triple locking diffs. They both have 6-cylinder engines that are powerful enough, torquey enough. I take my Land Cruiser, I can go to any shop. If I don't want to work on it myself, which I can do, I can take it to any shop and I can get work done for cheap. I can be in any country. And even in the United States, if I need a part, I can just order it from Japan. I can just go into a Toyota dealer in Japan and order it. But some Toyota dealerships are perfectly comfortable doing that here in the U.S., and it's going to be cheap. My G-Wagon has a little over 30,000 miles on it. I brought it into the U.S. It was well maintained, but had a lot of deferred maintenance items that basically the original owner, he was like, look, I'm going to sell it. I don't want to do all this deferred maintenance. Well, I do it. I take it to Centennial in Pensacola, Florida, the Mercedes dealership, and I pay almost $9,000. And a lot of this stuff I could have done myself, but that's the fear when you have a G-Wagon or a car that's this expensive. You do something yourself, you screw it up, or even it's not your fault. If something goes wrong with the car and you want it fixed, it's on you, right? And it's going to be really expensive. So sometimes maintenance is the same as insurance whenever you're having it done at a dealership, which is what I did. And man, it's a German car. It's going to be expensive to work on. That's all there is to it. A word from our sponsor, eBay Motors. Ever try to buy a car and end up in a parking lot with a stranger in some blind trust? Or spend half the day at a dealership talking to pushy salespeople and signing paperwork, or maybe worst of all, waiting for hours at the DMV just to transfer a title. That era is over. For years, eBay has been the go-to for gearheads, collectors, and do-it-yourselfers because whatever you're into, from classics to SUVs, trucks to imports, eBay's got it. And now with Secure Purchase, eBay isn't just where you find your next ride, it's where you can buy it start to finish. Sellers and titles are verified, paperwork is handled by experts, and payments are traceable and digital, so you know exactly who you're dealing with and exactly what you're getting. Plus, you can finance, insure, and register your vehicle all in one place. No more hours at the dealership, no more trips to the DMV. Get your vehicle, plates, and paperwork shipped to your door, ready to drive, and it's all part of one seamless process designed to feel as easy as buying anything else online. And eligible vehicles purchased on eBay are backed by up to $100,000 in purchase protection. Thinking about selling your ride? Secure Purchase makes that simple too, because you know your buyer and their funds are verified. If you still owe on your car, the financing payoff is fully integrated, so you're not chasing paperwork or waiting on checks to clear. And with Secure Purchase, you get paid fast, and you're not going to be stuck chasing no-shows or answering the fifth still available email message. This is what modern car buying looks like. Skip the DMV, skip the sketchy meetups, buy it on eBay. eBay, things people love. Secure Purchase is powered by Caramel Dealer Services, LLC, an eBay subsidiary. So which is better? I guess it just depends on what kind of person you are. Are you a permission or forgiveness type of guy? Because if you're a forgiveness guy, the Land Cruiser is your truck. It's very forgiving of neglect. It's very forgiving of abuse. It's very forgiving of imperfect service. It will run and run and run. You can get it without a maintenance history, and as long as it fires up and runs, and you stay on top of maintenance within some degree of reasonableness, then it's going to be fine. That's why NGOs, that's why militaries use these trucks. That's why you see them in the most remote regions in the planet. But at the same time, I think most private buyers in the United States, most private owners are going to choose the Mercedes just because it's easier to live with. It makes more sense. Plus, most of them are going to be left-hand drive, where it's like if you buy a 70 series, there's a good chance it's going to be right-hand drive, which is no problem for me, but a huge problem for a lot of people. But I think if you're posing this question about Land Cruiser versus G-Wagon to the average city-dwelling American, it's not even going to be a close call. It's going to be G-Wagon. You know, what's your budget? What years are we looking at? What are we talking about buying? And that's the problem, is that I bait and switched you with this G-Wagon versus Land Cruiser theme because it just truly depends. There are so many variants of the Land Cruiser. The G-Wagon is, I wouldn't say so many variants. There's not a whole lot of variants of the G-Wagon, but it is a totally different car. It's just evolved into this ultra luxury car. So it's really hard to actually make a true apples to apples comparison between these two vehicles. Daily driving. My Land Cruiser's fun. I really enjoy how commanding it is on the road. I mean, you're sitting up high. You've got glass that goes down to your belly button. You know, so you're up high in the road and you can see everything around you. Great visibility, but it's a little sluggish. It's actually quite easy to drive. It's a lot smaller than people realize. It's smaller than like a Dodge Ram truck. It's pretty easy to drive. On the highway, look, it's not comfortable, but it's not uncomfortable. I mean, I've driven it on Interstate 10 from Florida to New Orleans, and it's fine. Now let's compare that with the G-Wagon. As I mentioned, my 99 G320 is as luxurious and as smooth a driver as any car that you could drive today in 2025, even though mine is 26 years old. It behaves better on the highway. Actually has a really weird cruise control. The cruise control, it's like a speed limiter. It doesn't hold the throttle at whatever you designate, the speed you designate. It puts a hard cap. You cannot drive faster than this speed. So you can slam your pedal all the way to the floor and you're not going to go any faster than what you set the cruise control at. But if you let your foot off the pedal, then you know, you'll go to zero. But even by the late 90s, you're already talking about the G-Wagon being a luxury car, not really a utility car. Now, fortunately, as I said, I've got triple locking differentials. Mine would be perfectly capable off-road. It actually sits pretty high as well. But then once you get certainly to like 2018, that's where things start to get silly. And now you're just talking about like basketball players' wives driving these. And by the way, I see plenty of that here in New Orleans. You know, like you'll see someone driving a brand new G-Wagon, and, you know, it's like some woman with a huge rock and, you know, looks like she's a supermodel. It's like, okay, probably Saints player's wife or something. Maintenance we talked about, going to be way easier on the Land Cruiser. Depending on what it is, like I'm sure you can find a cheaper G-Wagon. You have some undesirable, like really, really low horsepower G-Wagons that are going to be worth less than even some mid-level Land Cruisers. But look, for the most part, it's not even close. Like you're going to be able to find a Land Cruiser in excellent condition that's going to be cheaper than like maybe a mid-level, most mid-level G-Wagons. Which one do I like better? I don't know. I mean, it's not a clean comparison. I'm not giving you an answer. I roped you in, clickbaited you with this episode. I don't know. Like in my heart of hearts, I'm going to say I like the Land Cruiser better because I've always been a Land Cruiser guy. But man, if I'm taking my wife out on a date, we're taking the G-Wagon. That's for sure. It still smells good. It's like 26 years old. It still smells like a new car. If I have to crown one king, 80 Series Land Cruiser. The 80 Series, which came out, I want to say, in the 90s. And I think it was the Lexus LX 450, maybe was the Lexus version. You still have triple locking differentials. You still have off-road capability. You still have reliable, durable, powerful engines. However, this is where they started to turn towards luxury. They're very comfortable to ride in, especially the Lexus versions. I think this is kind of the apex of everything. If you're looking for reasonably priced, which, like I said, they're starting to get crazy, but if you're looking for reasonably priced, livable, drivable, luxurious, and good collector value, right now I think 80 Series is the king, more than any G-Wagon or even 70 Series, even though I would call the 70 Series the purest expression of the Land Cruiser, my favorite, which is why I own two of them. New G-Wagon, you couldn't give me one. I don't think they're the same car. It's that girl that you went to high school with that became a pop singer. You know, she ain't the same. She's something totally different now. You dated her, you know, she was your sweetheart, and you took her to sophomore prom, and you can't dance, so you just pretended like you were sick, and you had your parents come and pick you up, and you were heartbroken, and that's when she was the sweet girl from down the street. But now the modern G-Wagon is like Britney Spears, you know, where she's became famous and just lost it. It's not even the same, disconnected from reality. So I don't even consider like post-2018 G-Wagons to even be G-Wagons. And it's really, to me, heartbreaking because I think it's totally severed from its origin. So which one is better for you? Know thyself. What do you want? If you want something that you can mistreat a little bit, that you can take out and off-road without feeling guilty, that you can find parts for easily, that you can service yourself easily, then I think you're looking at like a 60 or a 70 Series Land Cruiser, maybe an 80 Series. If you want something more luxurious, if you want something with creature comforts, you're looking at the 80 Series, some of the G-Wagons. If you don't want to spend over $100,000, well, now you're looking at like the G320s are a bargain compared to the G500s because they have the 3.2 liter V6 instead of the bigger V8, and you can get those for less than $50,000 in pretty good shape. So those are competitive. At the same time, I mean, you can get the 80 Series in great shape. You could spend almost $100,000 on them, but you might like that car better. So look, at the end of the day, I don't know which one's better versus, I don't know. It's a draw. I love them both. If you are thinking about getting one, think about your budget. Think about how much you want to spend, because if you want to spend less, maybe look at a 90 Series, right? Or maybe like the 90 Series or 100 Series, because those are kind of out of vogue right now. Look at importing a 90 Series. But if you want swag, if you want to have that big Mercedes pie on the front of your hood and you want to impress people, get in your car, G-Wagon might be for you. I don't know. What do you think? You guys tell me what you think in the comments. Thank you so much for listening. That was a fun one. I'm sorry I felt like I was just rambling the whole time. I hope this was useful for you, but thank you for listening to Automotive Icons. Happy 2026. Take care.